It can be tricky to review a game that's mechanically sound but doesn't do enough to build on an already successful predecessor to make it stand out. That largely sums up my time with EA Sports UFC 6, a game that I'd say has been forced to bear the weight of expectations thanks to a successful outing in UFC 5, and 3 years for EA to play around with its predecessor's core principles to evolve this one into something truly special. It needed to be a meaningful step forward for the franchise, instead of being a polished continuation of its best features that risk making it feel iterative instead of evolutionary. Has it achieved that feat? Well, yes and no. Yes, because there are certainly improvements that might make you feel like the 3-year wait for this one was worth it. No, because some of the things that plague sports simulators continue to be a part of the experience on offer in this one, for better or worse. Let's start with what's good, and the fighting is definitely among the stronger parts of the entire game. UFC 6 is at its finest when you're in the Octagon, which is always good for a fighter that carries its ambitions and the expectations of its players. The new real-time striking system is something that's going to stand out the minute you engage with it. Strikes feel impactful, with satisfying feedback that can make trading blows feel convincingly weighty, and you almost feel your blows connect with bone-crunching intensity. Your strikes don't depend on canned sequences or reactions that feel like they've already been decided before you make contact with your opponent. Instead, the outcome of such exchanges now depends on how well you position yourself for an attack, your timing and distance, head movements, and of course, your inputs. It lends a layer of immersion and authenticity to every match in ways that immediately make the striking system feel like one of the evolutions that we mentioned. That's because it makes knockdowns look and feel more believable than they've ever been, while each fight now feels more violent and unpredictable. They look so authentic, you're going to feel like the driving force behind your chosen fighter's fists and feet for the most part. That's made even better by the fact that the damage that you dish out and take in return is now visible enough to be a visual reminder of how well you're doing in a fight. The blood paints a grim picture on the canvas, while the injury system makes things quite realistic, although it feels a tad too exaggerated for my taste. Your mileage with it is going to vary, but I did think it could be taken down a notch. Sadly, the evolution of the striking system feels like it's actively countered by the stamina bar, which drains far too rapidly for it to be ideal at times, and that does affect the rhythm of fights. It isn't game-breaking, but it did happen enough for it to be a noticeable annoyance. But it isn't going to be as divisive as the new flow state feature. It's one of the biggest gameplay additions and is one that could either make or break your enjoyment of this one. It's a solid idea on paper, as it gives each individual athlete a unique set of strengths that play into their real-world fighting styles. Playing to your strengths increases your flow meter, which in turn activates your flow state once it's completely filled. That opens up opportunities for finishers, recovering from a bad round, or giving you a distinct advantage in a match that you've already been dominating, allowing you to take your opponent out of the equation far more easily than you would have without it. It encourages you to switch things up depending on which fighter that you're bringing to the fight, which is a great way to add a dash of individuality to each athlete, while also giving each fight a sense of momentum. You're constantly feeling the ebb and flow of an intense clash, and it's quite immersive as a result. I'm a fan, although I can see how the purists among you might end up seeing it as a gimmick rather than a meaningful addition. It's fun, but comes at the risk of feeling cheesy, as you tend to try sticking to moves that play to your strengths instead of responding dynamically to your opponents with ones that are outside of your chosen fighter's comfort zone. It might have worked very well in the arcade fighter, but in something that aims to simulate a real-world sport, it can feel a touch out of place. Aside from the flow state mechanic, there's Grappling, which can feel all too close to what was on offer in UFC 5. As it brings the same stiff rhythm and that deliberate approach from the previous games that's recognizable almost instantly. It's got that clunky pacing that makes it feel akin to tactical exchange instead of a fluid struggle between two fighters who have trained to the peak of their abilities. It's a mind game in the middle of a physical fight that doesn't necessarily make it terrible, but it doesn't make any evolutionary changes to merit praise. It's functional at best and disappointing at worst, depending on whether you liked what was on offer 3 years ago. Thus far, the gameplay should tell you something about why this one feels like a solid experience, but not one that justifies the long gap between releases in the franchise's lineup. Well, that extends to the other areas of the game, including the presentation. In a game like UFC 6, recreating the atmosphere and sheer adrenaline of being at a UFC event is something that's crucial to the experience. It's certainly authentic, with walkouts, commentary, replays, lighting, special effects, and broadcast-style elements that all contribute to making this one sustain the quality that the franchise has been known for. But there are inconsistencies that crop up and stand out against the backdrop quite prominently. Some fighters don't look as close to their real-world counterparts as they should, with a few awkward body proportions that stick out like sore thumbs showing up from time to time. They stand out against the backdrop of a generally solid experience overall, while the HUD feels far too busy in a game that's meant to have you laser-focused on your opponent, ready to respond to their attempts to take you down. It's an issue that works in tandem with the inaccuracies on fighters to bring down the overall presentation from what should have felt like a premium, refined take on the franchise. However, the game's many modes kind of make up for those little mistakes. For instance, the Legacy mode is now a great place for you to dive in when you boot up the game if you're new to the franchise. It acts as a great tutorial, letting you follow Chris Carter's career complete with cinematic sequences and fights both inside the Octagon and outside of it. It's helped along by appearances from Coach Thompson and Carter's rival, Danny Lopez, with the drama and human emotions that come with a career such as his on full display. The fact that his father's legacy underlines his journey from the regional MMA scene to the UFC is a highlight, and it's something I found very entertaining. It's also a great way to come to grips with the game's core systems, important mechanics, and more, allowing you to take it all in before you commit to the career mode, which features a lot of the same training camps, the integration of social media, and your need to manage your online presence, and progression systems in a way that feels natural. It's well thought out, and a welcome presence in the game for newbies and franchise veterans alike. That you get to unlock new skills across categories is a nice touch, lending a bit of depth to the game's progression loop as well. It also helps the transition to the full-blown career mode a lot smoother, since you can get to the UFC a lot faster thanks to all the work that you've already put in. The career mode itself is now expanded with more narrative choices, narrative events, interactions via text and social media, better training and fitness management systems, and other progression elements, all of which feed into the illusion that your character is climbing the ranks while trying to sustain their popularity amongst audiences in order to further their career. All of that's pretty exciting, but UFC 6 falls prey to a pitfall that has plagued simulation games of its nature. You're dealing with a lot of menus for too much of the time that you spend outside the Octagon. Too many activities are reduced to merely selecting between dialogue options, which doesn't work well when most of the choices you're allowed to make feel flat. It all feels mechanical in a way that gives the impression that you're trying to game the system instead of navigating a range of possibilities in a way that's fluid and organic. Moving on to the Hall of Legends, it's an interesting diversion that's sure to make UFC fans feel quite happy about its inclusion. You get to move through museum-like spaces with halls dedicated to popular fighters across the sport's history. Those halls come with fighting podiums that let you step into memorable moments of a fighter's career, taking control of them in some of the most memorable bouts of their respective careers. It isn't going to sell more copies of UFC 6, but it's certainly going to be a nice way to blow off some steam when the pressure of your career threatens to overwhelm you. It's always good to look to them greats for inspiration, after all. Fight Now is where you're going to go if you're looking for a quick matchup, with different settings, fighters, and categories allowing you to mix and match to your heart's content. I would have liked to test out the online multiplayer part of the experience, but try as I might, I couldn't connect to the servers despite multiple attempts. I can't comment on it thanks to that limitation. It is what it is, though. However, I can say that I've spent enough time with this one to know that it succeeds where it matters the most: the fighting. However, it isn't the revolutionary sequel that any of us were hoping for, and that's a damn shame considering how good what's on offer really is. As an MMA simulator, this one is as solid as they come, and you're going to have a good time with it. But, as the latest installment in a reputed franchise, it doesn't do enough to sell itself apart. I'd still recommend it to you, but I can't help but wish that I could do more, wholeheartedly more than I am now. It falls just short of a generational leap, but I'm hopeful about post-launch updates ironing out at least some of its issues to make it a better rounded out take on a simulator. It's got the potential to be the undisputed champion, standing tall among the franchise's greats, but it's not quite there yet. This could be the definitive UFC experience given enough time, but as it stands, it falls just short of true greatness. Hey, did you know that we at GamingBolt upload new videos every day? Stick around, drop a like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And let us know what kind of content you'd like to see in the future with a comment below.